Hi everyone, this is Paul here from the Magdalene Centre. Today I'm doing the astrology report for the week commencing the 20th of June, outlining some of the key changes and aspects this week and giving a basic overview of what they mean for us. Before I do that, I just want to clarify, as I always do, that the astrology itself doesn't control us in any way, shape or form. It's merely a way of helping us to understand what the energies around us are doing, and by understanding what themes are being highlighted, we can then make sure that whatever actions we're doing are guided by wisdom rather than reactivity, and we're making sure that we're responding to situations rather than reacting. Now, in terms of the astrology this week, we start off with the moon in Virgo, and this is a time where we may feel the need to get our environment in order, to focus on our physical and mental health, and focus on any key tasks that need to be done that will boost our well-being. On the Wednesday itself, though, the moon will move into Libra, and this will be a time where we may feel like need to reach out to one another to rebuild or strengthen existing bonds with one another, and to focus on the relationships we have with the people around us. On Friday, the moon will be in Scorpio, so this will be a time where we get to explore the deeper realms of our mind, or our deeper motivations for doing things, and also this may be a time when we feel emotional patterns surfacing that we need to be releasing. Before on Monday, the moon will move into Sagittarius, and this will be a time where we may feel that emotional need to explore new truths, explore new ideas, and try and understand the natural laws that guide everything, so we can understand at an emotional level the bigger picture. Now, during this week, one of the biggest changes is obviously going to be the sun moving into Cancer at the summer solstice. So this happens on Thursday the 21st, and this is obviously not only a change of sign, it's also a change of season, and it's a time we've had the sun in Gemini for the past month, and this has been a time of focusing on our perceptions, our rational mind, our thought patterns. Now we're moving into Cancer, exploring our internal world, our inner landscape, and our emotional impressions. Cancer also deals with our past conditioning, what's happened in our past, and it links to the emotional responses that have been inbuilt as a result of previous experiences. And these emotional responses often get triggered by current events, but the event isn't the same as what originally caused that emotional pattern, but we may still experience the same emotional response to things which may be inappropriate for the events at hand. So part of the sun's transit to Cancer will be about observing our emotional responses to situations and learning to separate emotional responses to physical events, but also to separate our emotions from our thoughts, because quite often emotions that spring up have to do with a thought pattern linked to something that's happened in the past. So part of the work of Cancer is about deconditioning ourselves, releasing old past conditioning, and a lot of it may stem from childhood, but it's a time of year for exploring our internal world and getting in touch with the roots of who we are, because Cancer deals with the idea of home. Now, home isn't necessarily the house we have, it's the whole home is where the heart is, and it's about seeking that spiritual home within our own spiritual heart, as it were. So the more we can break free of conditioning, the deeper we move into our own, or the further we go into the roots of who we are and get to our core nature. And once we can operate from this place that's independent of conditioning, it's free of emotional attachments, we're then in a position where we can respond to the world, or give nurturing and love freely, because we're no longer conditioned by fear of getting hurt, we're no longer conditioned by old emotional events. We're now free of emotional conditioning, and can give love freely and give nurturing freely, without fearing getting hurt in any way, because we've got that love flowing through us naturally. Now, we'll do a much more in-depth explanation of the Sun in Cancer when I do the Sun in Cancer transit video, but for now, the main thing to focus on when the Sun enters Cancer is observing our emotional responses to things and assessing whether the emotions are actually linked to the current event, or if it's just something that we're responding to in a way that's similar to a previous event. On the same day, the Venus in Leo will be exactly opposite Mars in Aquarius, and the opposition between Venus and Mars naturally occurs in the zodiac because Mars rules Aries and Venus rules the opposite sign, Libra. So in some respects, the fact that they're opposing one another isn't necessarily a bad thing, because sometimes we need that opposition to give the two functions better definition, because Venus is about attraction and about the more passive functions. So it's dealing with our values and dealing with love. Mars, on the other hand, is about desire and about action. But the two are interconnected. They complement one another, because Venus, being the value system, directly impacts the actions and desires, because whatever desires we have stem at some degree from our values. So if this opposition gives us an opportunity for us to get clear on make more clear on our values, but also on our actions and desires. And it also deals with the need for autonomy versus the need for connection, because that's one of the key balances that we all have to learn to achieve, is how can we maintain our autonomy in the sense of being true to who we are and maintaining our own separate sense of identity, versus the need to honour our commitments in relationships, to respect one another and to look after one another. But the two aren't necessarily exclusive, because the thing is, if our actions and desires are being guided by a value system that takes into account other people, that takes into account the need for harmony and to respect both parties' wishes, then our actions naturally come into a greater harmony, and we'll be operating through right actions. So our actions are guided by a desire not only to maintain our own sense of self-identity, so we stay true to who we are, but also to honour and respect the needs of the people around us. And with Mars representing our inner masculine and Venus our inner feminine, this is also about looking within ourselves. How do we relate to the two? How do we relate to our own masculinity? How do we relate to our own femininity? Because we all have both within us. It's not, obviously, men are the physical manifestation or physical representation of masculine, and women are the embodiment of the feminine, but men still have the feminine energies within, likewise women have the masculine energies within. So part of this polarity may also be about, for some people, how can we stay in touch with or focus on harmony and focusing on the feminine needs, and for others, how can we learn assertiveness? How can we maintain that sense of who we are, so we don't just roll over and become a doormat or lose touch with who we are? It's making sure that we achieve that balance within us. That way, when we're in any kind of relationship with people, whether it be romantic, platonic, business, or any kind of partnership, we maintain the balance between the two. So honouring ourselves and honouring the other person. I like the old instruction to love and honour oneself and love and honour one another. Now, in terms of other aspects, next ones will be on Saturday. This will be when the Sun in Cancer forms a sextile to Uranus in Taurus, and at the same time a square to Chiron in Aries. So this gives us an opportunity for us to, with this sextile to Uranus, this gives us an opportunity to look at or see what our value systems are, because Uranus is in Taurus at the moment, so it's evaluating our values. But with it being in touch with the Sun, which is our core sense of identity, this is also about how can we bring greater, or how can we bring higher understanding or greater intuitive connection to who we are. How can we become more open to seeing things at a collective level, so understanding that yes, we are individuals, but we're part of a collective whole, and that collective whole is all interconnected. Nothing we do operates within an isolation. It has impacts on other people. and how can we learn to embrace change when it's required, so that rather than fighting against change and therefore resisting the natural flow of things, of being in divine flow, and how can we learn to release any fears of change and instead learn to go with the flow and allow that divine flow to show us the next thing we need to be doing. At the same time, as I said, we have a square to Chiron, so this kind of brings into account, because Chiron's in Aries at the moment. This is just its initial inroads, but with Chiron in Aries, we're talking about the wound to the self, or the sense of self-identity, and specifically the wound to the I am. So it's about shining a light on where do we limit ourselves through negative I am statements, where do we define ourselves in a negative way. So where do we identify with emotions, or where do we limit ourselves by saying something like I'm stupid, for example, or I'm not good enough. These are all statements which impact our sense of identity, and whoever we proclaim to be, the universe will then respond with more of that. So it's highlighting, bringing awareness to where are we undermining ourselves, where are we using negative self-definitions and using negative words after the words I am to describe ourselves, that's further perpetuating the situations we're in. And what do we need to then replace those words with, so that we move beyond that limited sense of self, and we learn to figure out who we are and make sure that what we're doing is right for who we are, and making sure that we're not taking action to try and figure out who we are. We're not needing to take action just to feel a sense of identity. It's about becoming aware of, or at a deeper level, of who we are. We had Uranus going through Aries, and this has awakened to a lot of people the I am and a more entrepreneurial spirit. But now Chiron's replacing Uranus in Aries. This is a time when we need to look at the wounds to the I am that limit us, and learn to heal the ego, so that it's able to take the actions necessary to make the goals that we get through the higher mind a reality on Earth. The last thing I want to mention is Mars is going to turn retrograde on Tuesday for about 2 months. It starts off in Aquarius and moves backwards into Capricorn later on. But with Mars retrograde, this is a time where it's about reviewing our actions and desires. So sometimes this can manifest as feeling like a struggle to assert ourselves, or a struggle to take action. And it's a time where we need to slow down and review the actions and desires that we commit to. With it starting off in Aquarius, this is like humanitarian action, so it's assessing, are our actions and desires truly humanitarian, or are we trying to commit to actions just to make ourselves feel special or to feel superior to other people, and instead transform those desires, if that's the case, so they are actually motivated by a more humanitarian ideal. But also making sure that the actions and desires that we're pursuing are actually future oriented. So what I mean by that is that we're not just doing things because that's the way they've always been done. It's looking at how can we change our desires, how can we change our actions so that they're more aligned with a future that is humanitarian and egalitarian, will benefit everyone and not just ourselves. And therefore, how can we change the actions that we commit to so that they are aligned with a more humanitarian objective and more humanitarian desires. And later on, Mars will backtrack into Capricorn, and this will be a time of looking at what legacies we desire to create for ourselves, what goals do we set for ourselves over a long period of time, and are they actually right for who we are? Are we actually taking action along the lines of a goal that is right for us, or actually just doing something because it seems like a good idea, but we don't actually know who we are? Because the thing is, for our actions and desires to be right for us, we have to know who we are first. And by reviewing the actions and desires and spending time in stillness to stay clear as to who we are and maintain connection with that core sense of self, only then can we actually transform the actions and desires in a way that will be better aligned with who we are, where we'll be asserting our true self and actions and desires that are humanitarian, but also obviously right for ourselves as well. It's not about doing something for the sake of others but neglecting ourselves. If it's not right for who we are as well, then we'll struggle to commit to it. So there's a lot to take on board there, but the next week coming up has a lot of change on board, but it also has a lot of opportunity for us to slow down and reflect and to bring awareness to the deeper patterns of who we are. So in fact, there's two other things I've forgotten to mention here. We currently have a grand water trine with Mercury in Cancer, Jupiter in Scorpio, and Neptune in Pisces. So this is all obviously about emotions. With Mercury in Cancer, this allows the rational mind to understand our emotions better, and with the connection to Jupiter in Scorpio, we can develop a greater understanding of our own shadow, the deeper motivations for why we do things, and recognise where we need to transform emotional patterns and mental patterns for that matter, so that we don't limit ourselves, we're not keeping ourselves suppressed in any way, and we're not continuing to project our issues onto other people to avoid dealing with the matters at hand. And with Neptune in Pisces forming a trine as well, this is also an opportunity to allow that, and with Neptune now retrograde as well, this brings in a much more powerful spiritual vibration, and it allows us to transform the rational mind as such through attuning it with understanding psychic phenomena and understanding the necessity of surrender to a higher power in order for us to be truly powerful. But it's also about going through the core of who we are, allowing that universal love and the forgiveness necessary in Scorpio for us to be true to who we are. The other thing I want to mention was we have another grand trine, this time in fire and involving the goddess asteroids. We have Juno in Aries, and this is a time where we may feel the need to assert our autonomy in relationships or have our autonomy respected. We have Ceres in Leo, and this is a time of nurturing our own creative self-expression and nurturing the creative expression of others. So it's taking that time with ourselves to make sure that we work on ourselves, that we nurture our own creative potentials, and by embodying that creative potential within us, we become better able to help other people, inspire them. And lastly, we have Vesta up in Sagittarius. So this is all about the need to have something that we can believe in, or the need to commit to something that feels right to us and that we can invest our faith in. With Vesta retrograde as well, we're looking at making sure that whatever we commit to is actually right for who we are, does honour who we are, and we're not just sliding through life letting other people dictate things, and therefore losing our integrity, losing a sense of self, because we're not actually committed to maintaining that fire that keeps us going and keeps us true to who we are. That fire then goes down, doesn't actually go out, but it's our responsibility to nurture it through being true to who we are and only devoting our energy to things that we truly believe in and are right for us. With this fire trine, it also brings a lot of opportunity for working on our desires, for developing greater harmony in committed relationships and greater devotion to nurturing one another, nurturing each other's creativity, and also instilling greater belief in oneself and belief in a higher purpose that gives us that goal and that desire to keep striving for and keep taking action, whilst making sure that our need for autonomy is respected in relationships. There's a lot to take on board this week, so I hope that's a useful guide for you. The main events are going to be the Sun moving into Cancer and Mars turning retrograde, but everything else also flavours things. But as I said at the start, what's going on in the skies will not necessarily affect us, or not necessarily, it doesn't control us in any way. So if we want things to happen, or if we want to kind of ride the energy waves that the different aspects make, then we have to work on aligning ourselves or aligning our actions and making sure that we're working on ourselves so that we keep operating from a place of love and we don't fall into fear. Because when we fall into fear, then the negative manifestations of some of the aspects are more likely to form. But if we can stay true to who we are and maintain some kind of spiritual practice so that we remain true to who we are throughout and we don't lose sight of who we are, then there is a lot that we can achieve with the energy this week. There's a lot we can learn about ourselves. It's up to each and every single one of us to actually take those steps to learn the lessons and not just let the energy pass us by and nothing's done from it. It doesn't mean that we won't have the opportunity to do any of the things mentioned at any other time. We have free will to try things at any point, but the energies at this time are highlighting certain spiritual lessons. It's up to us if we choose to learn them or not. So I hope you get much growth from this week's astrology. May it bring many blessings. Take care.